Want to learn to make a super cute puff granny square just like these? If you do, this is a tutorial for you. I'm Rachel from Hope Corner Farm, and by day I'm a home ec teacher who teaches hundreds of students how to crochet, and I'm going to walk you step by step through the process of how to make one of these super cute puff granny squares. If you're ready to learn, let's grab a hook and some yarn and we'll get crocheting. Before we get started, make sure you subscribe to my channel, hit the bell so you get notifications of when I post new videos, and don't forget to give me some feedback on this video. Give me a like or a comment, let me know what I did well or things that I could improve upon. So for the puff granny square, you're going to have to gather a few materials. First off, you're going to need 2 different color yarns. These are medium weight yarns, size 4 yarns, just a regular worsted weight yarn. You're going to need a J hook, which is 6.0 millimeters, a pair of scissors, and a yarn needle. Once you've gathered all your materials, we'll start into our puff granny. For the puff granny square, I like to start it off with a magic circle. If you're not quite sure how to do a magic circle, I've got a video that takes it a lot slower in the comments below. I'm also going to walk you through this. Alternatively, you could start by chaining 4 and then joining with a slip stitch to the first chain to create a circle. Either way works, but I like how the center looks with a magic circle better. So I'm going to take my yarn tail, I'm going to pinch it between my thumb and my index finger. I'm going to drape over the top of my 3 fingers. I'm going to come down below my 3 fingers, come up and cross over. I'm going to hold that crossover piece in place with my pinky. I'm going to take my hook facing down. I'm going to go under the first loop, over the second, and pull forward. That kind of creates an A. Now I'm going to twist my hook so it's right side up. So we went from facing downwards to rotating facing up. I'm going to come over here and grab on right to this yarn right here, and I'm going to make a chain 1. Now I can take the magic circle off of my hand, and now I'm ready to work into the circle. Now we're ready for round 1, and into the circle I am going to work 8 puff stitches followed by a chain 1. So to do this, I start by yarning over, inserting into the circle, yarning over, pulling through the circle. That's 3 loops on my hook, yarn over again, into the circle, yarn over, pull through the circle. Now I've got 5 loops on my hook, yarn over one more time, go into the circle, yarn over, pull through the circle. Now I have 7 loops on my hook. I'm going to yarn over and pull through all 7 loops. And then I'm going to chain 1. Now I'm going to repeat the process 7 more times, so I have 8 of these. So yarn over, into the circle, yarn over, pull through the circle, yarn over, into the circle, yarn over, pull through the circle, yarn over, into the circle, yarn over, pull through the circle, yarn over, pull through all 7 loops, chain 1. Now we've got 3. We have 5 left to go. 4, 5, 6, 7, and here's our last one. So you can see here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 puff stitches that have each been followed by a chain 1. Now we need to close this circle. So what I do here is I unwind my yarn tail, and then I'm just going to gently put some pressure right here on this very last puff stitch with my index and my thumb, and I'm going to start pulling on that yarn tail. And I'm going to keep pulling, keep pulling, keep pulling, tighten it up nice and tight so you can see what that center circle looks like. Again, that's why I like using the magic circle, is that nice center piece. Now I'm going to come over here and into the top of this puff stitch right here, I'm going to slip stitch to this space right here. So I insert my hook, I yarn over, pull through that space, pull through that loop, and that completes round 1. To start round 2, we're going to begin by chaining 1. Now we're going to come over here and we're going to work into this space right here, into that chain 1 space. So we're going to work into the chain 1 spaces all the way around. We're not working into the tops of the puff stitches. We are working into the chain 1 spaces. So I've chained 1 and I'm ready to work into this space right here. So I'm going to work a puff stitch into there. So just like the last round, we're going to yarn over, insert into the chain 1 space, yarn over, pull through the chain 1 space, yarn over, insert again into that same space, yarn over, pull through, and then one more time, yarn over into the same space, yarn over, pull through. Just like the last time, now you've got 7 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 7 loops, and then chain 1. Now we're going to work another puff stitch into that exact same chain 1 space. So yarn over into the same space, yarn over, pull through, yarn over into the same space, yarn over, pull through, yarn over into the same space, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 7 loops, chain 1. So into each chain 1 space, we're going to work a puff stitch, chain 1, puff stitch, chain 1. We're going to do that all the way around here. So now I'm going to move to the next chain 1 space and repeat. I'm going to put 2 puff stitches into that with the chain 1 space in between them. So there's 1 puff stitch, chain 1. There's the second puff stitch, chain 1. Move to the next chain 1 space. And we're going to place a puff stitch in there. Chain 1. Chain 1. Move to the next chain 1 space from the previous round. 2 puff stitches followed by chain 1s. Go to the next one. Puff stitch, chain 1, puff stitch, chain 1. Move to the next chain 1 space. Puff stitch, chain 1, puff stitch, chain 1. Move to the next space. So I've got one last space to work into, so I'm going to work right into this last chain 1 space, and just like the previous ones around, we're going to put a puff stitch, chain 1, puff stitch, chain 1. And then to finish round 2, again, I'm going to come over here into the top of that first puff stitch, so this space right here, that's where I'm going to slip stitch to. So I'm going to insert my hook, yarn over, pull through, pull through. So we're just pulling through both of them, slip stitching. And that completes round 2. Now we're ready for round 3. So just like the other rounds, we're going to start by chaining 1, and we're going to work again into the chain 1 spaces in between the puffs all the way around. So we're not working into the tops of the puffs, we're working into that chain 1 space that is in between each of our puffs. So into this first chain 1 space, I'm going to work just 1 puff stitch, and I'm going to follow it with a chain 1. I'm going to move to the next chain 1 space and again work a singular puff stitch followed by a chain 1 space. Now into this next chain 1 space, I'm going to put puff, chain 1, puff, chain 1. So we're increasing a little bit for this round. So we're going to go puff stitch, chain 1, puff stitch, chain 1. So 1, 1, 2, and we're going to repeat that pattern around. So we're going to go 1, 1, 2. So we're going to put 1 puff stitch, chain 1 into this space right here. We're going to put another into the next chain 1 space. We're going to put another puff, chain 1. And then into this chain 1 space, we're going to work 2 puff stitches. So 1 puff stitch, followed by a chain 1, and then another puff stitch, followed by a chain 1. We're going to keep repeating that around here as we go. What I've found too with my students is that granny squares seem to be a great beginner project. It's not such a big project, it's not so daunting. Obviously they have to master a few of the stitches, but after they master those stitches, a granny square is a great small project to start with, and you can make a whole bunch of them and then put them into a big blanket or afghan. So that's why my students seem to like that a lot. So again, I'm repeating, going 1 puff stitch, chain 1, 1 puff stitch, chain 1, so 1, 1, and then 2, all the way around here. So we have just a few more here to go for this round. So I'm going to go with a singular puff stitch, followed by a chain 1 in this first space. Move to the next space, place another singular puff stitch, followed by a chain 1. Move into the next space, and we're going to put 2 puff stitches. So here is 1. Oh, and if that happens, don't be afraid to let it go. I have been crocheting for years, and I still will have mistakes with my stitches, and don't be afraid to rip things out. So there's 1, and here is 2 puff stitches. So again, 1, 1, 2, and then I'm going to go 1, 1, and then end with 2. So we're going to go 1 singular puff stitch here, chain 1, 1 singular puff stitch here, chain 1, and then into this last space. One thing I want to point out before I put these last 2 puff stitches in here is you can see if I stretch this out a little bit, inside of that chain 1 space, we have this diagonal space right here, and that is the chain 1 that took us over to our chain 1 spaces in the last row. I want to hide this, so I need to make sure to work my puff stitches below into this space right here, not up here. So we're working below this little diagonal space right here. We're going to work down here, and that's going to hide that chain 1, and you are going to hardly be able to tell where we join this round. So I yarn over, I'm going down below that diagonal space right here. I'm going to yarn over, pull through, yarn over into the space, yarn over, pull through, yarn over into the space, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through all the loops, chain 1. We're going to repeat one more time. Yarn over in, yarn over, pull through, yarn over in, yarn over, pull through, yarn over in, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through all of them, chain 1. And then we're going to come over here to the top of this very first puff stitch, and that's where we're going to slip stitch 2. And that completes this round. For round 4, we're going to start by chaining 1. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go 4 singular puff stitches followed by a double. So it'll be 1, 1, 1, 1, and then 2. So let's show you here. So we're going to put a regular singular puff stitch here into this first space, chain 1, a regular singular puff stitch into the next space, chain 1, another regular singular puff stitch, chain 1 into the next chain 1 space. So again, we're working into those chain 1 spaces from the previous round. So I've got 3, I have 1 more to go here. I forgot to chain 1, better do that. And then we're going to puff stitch, singular puff stitch into this next chain 1 space. Then into this chain 1 space, we're going to put 2. So it's a very, very slight increase again for this round. So there's 1 puff stitch, chain 1. We're going to go into the same space, work another puff stitch, chain 1. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4 singular puff chain 1s, and then a double. And we're going to repeat that. We're going to do that 3 times. So we're going to go puff stitch, chain 1. Move to the next chain 1 space and do a puff stitch, chain 1. Move to the next chain 1 space, do a puff stitch, chain 1. So we have 1, 2, 3. We have 1 more to do. We're going to go puff stitch, chain 1. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and now we're going to put 2 into this space. So here's the first puff stitch, chain 1. Here is my second puff stitch, chain 1. We're going to do this 1 more time. We're going to go 4 singular puff stitch, chain 1. So here's 1, 2, 3, and then a 4th. So 4 puff chain 1s, and then we're going to put 2 into this space right here. So here's 1, and then we're going to put a second. Now to finish out the row, we have 6 spaces left, so we're going to do 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, and 1. So we are not adding any more increases. So we're just going to go singular puff stitch, chain 1, move to the next chain 1 space, singular puff stitch, chain 1, next chain 1 space, singular puff stitch, chain 1, next chain 1 space, singular puff stitch, chain 1, next chain 1 space, we're going to do a singular puff stitch, chain 1, and then just like the previous round, we're going to work underneath that diagonal. So we're going to go into this space right here where my thumb is. So we're going into this space. So we're going to work a singular, again going below that diagonal, so a singular puff stitch followed by a chain 1, and then we're going to slip stitch to the top of that first puff stitch, and that completes round 4. Round 5 is our last round of puff stitches, and what we're going to do is we're going to work into each chain 1 space from the previous round, so just those chain 1 spaces. And what we're going to do is into each chain 1 space, we're going to work a puff stitch followed by 2 chain stitches this time. So we're not increasing, we're not adding a second puff stitch into any stitch. So what we're going to do is chain 1. I'm going to come over into this first chain 1 space and work a regular puff stitch. I'm going to chain 2. I'm going to move to the next chain 1 space. I'm going to work a puff stitch. I'm going to chain 2. And I'm just going to keep repeating, putting a singular puff stitch followed by a chain 2 into each space around. And this is the last round we're going to do with this color, and then we'll switch colors unless you want your whole block to have the same colors, which you could totally do. But you will need to break your yarn at the end of this round, no matter what you choose. I like to do a different color for my edge, so I'll bring in a different yarn here when I get to the next round. But again, this is all chain or puff stitch chain 2s all the way around. The nice thing about doing this is it helps to loosen the tension a little bit, and it's going to help this to lay a little bit flatter. With this granny square, I am going to block it. I do like to block my granny squares. I feel like it helps them lay just a little bit smoother and look a little bit nicer if I go to sew them together into anything. So that's just a little tip there. Blocking definitely helps. I have 2 spaces left that I'm going to work puff stitch chain 2s into. Just so you know, there are 24 of these puff stitch chain 2s that we'll have around, because there are 24 chain 1 spaces around this round. Now again, for this very last one, we're going to go underneath that diagonal space is where we're going to work that puff stitch. And then we're going to chain 2. And then we're going to come over here and we're going to slip stitch to the top of the very first puff stitch. Now here's a little different. Here's what it looks like at this point now. Hopefully you can see that. There, I took it out a little farther so you can see what the whole round looks like there. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to cut off my yarn, cut it free, because I am changing colors. And regardless, even if I don't change colors, I do like to break my yarn there. I'm going to fasten off. And now I'm ready for the next round, where I'm going to bring in my next color. All right, so now I'm going to bring in my border color, which I'm going to use white here. Now I am going to move 3 spaces to the left of my fasten off space. This is just where I like to start. So I'm going to put my hook into this chain space right here, or chain 2 space. I'm going to drape my new color over my hook and pull through that space. Now I'm going to pin that yarn tail back here with my 2 fingers on this hand, on my crochet hook hand for now. And then I'm going to grab with my thumb and my middle finger here. I'm kind of holding that yarn tail in place, and I'm going to chain 3. So here's 1, 2, and 3. Now that chain 3 is going to count as a double crochet stitch. Now I'm going to put 2 more double crochet stitches into that same chain 2 space. So there's 1 and 2 double crochets. Now I'm going to chain 2, And then I'm going to put 3 more double crochets into that same space. And yes, you see that yarn tail is kind of in the way. You can just pull it back out of the way. We're going to put 1, 2, 3 more double crochets into that same space. That creates a corner of our granny square. Now I'm going to move to the next chain 1 space, and into this chain 1 space I'm going to place 2 double crochets. So we're going to put 1 double crochet and a second double crochet. Now I'm going to move to the next chain 2 space, and I'm going to put 2 half double crochets into that space. I'm going to move to the next chain 2 space, and I'm going to put 2 single crochet stitches. This is going to help straighten out our edge, because right now we're a circle and we have to get it more square to make it a granny square. So I just did 2 single crochets. Now I'm into the next chain 2 space, and I'm going to place 2 half double crochets. Into the next chain 2 space, I'm going to place 2 double crochets. And then into this next chain 2 space, I'm going to work another corner. So I'm going to do that by placing 3 double crochets, followed by a chain 2, and then 3 more double crochets. So you can see I've finished that side, and it's starting to square up a little bit. Now we're ready to work down the next side. So into this next chain 2 space, I'm going to place 2 double crochets. Into the next chain 2 space, I'm going to place 2 half double crochets. Into the next chain 2 space, I'm going to place 2 single crochets. Now I'm going to go 2 half double crochets into the next one, 2 double crochets into the next one. Now I'm ready to work my third corner into this chain 2 space. So I'm going to do 3 double crochets, chain 2, and then 3 more double crochets. Now I'm going to go into the next chain 2 space and place 2 double crochets. 2 half double crochets go in the next chain 2 space. 2 single crochets go into the next space. 2 half double crochets into the next one, and 2 double crochets into the next. Now we're going to work our last corner. So again, 3 double crochets into that chain 2 space, chain 2, and then put 3 more double crochets into that same chain 2 space to make the last corner of this round. Now we've got one more side to go. So what we're going to do is we're going to place 2 double crochets in the next space. We're going to go 2 half double crochets in the next. After those 2 half double crochets, we're going to put 2 single crochets in here. Now here again, we have that diagonal space right here that we have to cover up. So I have to work my single crochets below that diagonal into this space. So we're going to go 1, 2 single crochets there, and that hides that. Then we're going to go 2 half double crochets into the next chain 2 space. 2 double crochets into the next chain 2 space, and then we're going to finish this round by joining up here into the top of this space right here, so right into the top of this double crochet. So we're going to yarn over, pull through, and that completes this round. For our final round, we start by chaining 1, and then we're going to place a half double crochet right away into that very first stitch, a half double crochet into the next stitch. Then into the corner, we're going to go 1, 2, 3 half double crochets. We're going to chain 2. Then we're going to place 3 more half double crochets. So here is 1, 2, and 3 half double crochets. Now we're going to place 1 half double crochet in each stitch down this side. So just into each stitch, you're going to place a half double crochet. This entire round is done with half double crochet stitches. Now when you get to a space like this, I like to go into this space, not down here. So I'm going to go right here and place a half double crochet. And then I'm just going to keep working regular half double crochets into each stitch across here. Now I'm to the corner, so again into the corner I'm going to place 3 half double crochets, followed by a chain 2. Then I'm going to put 3 more half double crochets into that corner. Then just like the other side, I'm going to place 1 regular half double crochet in each stitch down this side. And then now we're back to the corner, so again into the corner, 3 half double crochets, followed by a chain 2, and then 3 more half double crochets. So then again, we're going to put a half double crochet into this stitch and then into each stitch down this side. Now we're to the last corner and we're going to place 3 half double crochets, followed by a chain 2 and 3 more half double crochets. So now we're to the last side. We're going to place half double crochets all the way up until we get to this spot, and then I'll show you what we're going to do there. So now here we are almost to the end, so we're going to put 1 more half double crochet right into this space right here. So then we're going to come over here into the top of this half double crochet that we started with, and we're going to slip stitch, and that completes that round. And now we're ready to finish it off. Now to finish this off, I clip my yarn free, I fasten off, and then I simply weave in my ends. So we're going to take and go down. So I like to come to the back side actually, so I'm going to come down. And I like to go a couple of different directions with my weaving in. And then I'm going to clip my yarn off. I'm going to come and grab and weave in all of my ends here. So I'm going to quickly do that. So just weave in all of the ends that you have on this block and kind of get them nice and hidden and yet secured so that they don't come out. And that's the crochet puff granny square. If you're looking to make another granny square, check out my video tutorial for a sunburst granny square here, and that's your next project. Have a blessed day.